My name is Alara, and for 3 years, my world has been an endless night. I was the first love of Julian Thorne, the heir to a fortune, and I lost my sight while saving his life. In the darkness that followed, he found a new light in Chloe, a woman who looked so much like I once did that she was practically my shadow. He fell for her, ignoring the whispers and objections of everyone who knew our story, and they got engaged. I'm sorry, Alara, he had said, his voice a stranger's. My wife can't be blind. I didn't raise my voice or shed a tear in front of him. I simply offered a small, brittle smile and wished them a happy engagement. Julian's voice was hoarse when he asked me why I wasn't screaming at him, why I wasn't consumed by the rage he so clearly deserved. Didn't you love me more than anything? He asked, a desperate edge to his words. I felt nothing but a profound emptiness and told him so. Later that night, I heard through mutual friends that he had drunk himself into a stupor, so severe that it resulted in a stomach bleed. The following day, he drove his sports car down the highway like a man with a death wish, narrowly avoiding a fatal crash. For my 25th birthday, Julian brought her to my party. The instant they walked through the door, their hands intertwined, I could sense the shift in the atmosphere. A sudden, heavy silence fell over the room, a palpable thing I could feel on my skin. After all, I was his cherished first love, the girl his mother had always hoped would become her daughter-in-law. Aren't you going to introduce your guest, Julian? I asked, my hand tightening on the smooth wood of my cane as I pushed myself to my feet. My voice was calm, betraying none of the turmoil inside. Julian hesitated, and when he finally spoke, his voice was stiff and unnatural. This is Chloe. She's my... He trailed off, seemingly unable to find the right words to define her, or perhaps unwilling to say them aloud in front of me and our friends. Chloe, however, had no such reservations. I'm Julian's girlfriend, she announced, her voice a cheerful, bright sound that felt entirely out of place in the tense room. It's my first time meeting his friends, so it's wonderful to meet all of you. Her tone was pure and lively, the kind that could easily charm strangers, but in our circle, it was like a bucket of ice water. The quiet chatter died completely. Someone near me, a friend trying to protect me, finally spoke up, their tone sharp with disbelief. Are you serious? Everyone here knows that Alara is the only person Julian has ever wanted to marry. You're just a date for the evening, don't get ahead of yourself. For years, Julian had been seen with a rotating cast of women, but it was always a facade, an elaborate performance. After his mother's death, it was a necessary defense mechanism he employed to navigate the treacherous waters of his relationship with his stepmother. Our friends had naturally assumed Chloe was just another pawn in that ongoing game, but Julian's reaction in the next second shattered that illusion. He became furious. I heard the sharp sound of a glass being lifted and then the splash of liquid. Since when do you have the right to comment on my girlfriend? He snarled. Even without my sight, I could perfectly picture the scene. Julian's handsome face contorted with anger, his sharp jaw clenched, his stunning eyes blazing with a protective fire. He was always devastatingly beautiful, especially when he was angry. The friend who had spoken out groaned, holding his face. Julian, what the hell? Seriously? Before Julian could escalate further, I heard Chloe's light musical voice cut through the tension. She made a soft sound as if playfully hitting his arm. It's not his fault, darling. You've always been popular. Your friend was just trying to be nice. I don't mind at all. Their flirtatious exchange, so public and so careless, was like a physical blow, a sharp pain that lanced through my heart. About 2 years ago, another one of Julian's temporary girlfriends had confronted me, demanding that I renounce my position as his future wife. She had barely gotten the words out, calling me a blind girl unworthy of him, before Julian had lost control. He had smashed a bottle over her head without a second thought, drawing blood. His circle of acquaintances was filled with spoiled, entitled people, but after that incident, none of them ever dared to cross me again. This was the first time Julian had ever brought a woman into our inner circle and defended her with such ferocity. My friend, sitting beside me, leaned in and whispered, her voice laced with concern, Alara, that woman, she looks a bit like you. You don't think Julian sees her as some kind of substitute, do you? Even though I couldn't see her, I could feel Chloe's challenging gaze on me from across the room. She was nothing like the innocent, cheerful persona she projected. My nails dug into my palms as I scoffed, keeping my voice low. I'm blind, not dead. Why would he need a substitute for that? The truth was, our mutual friends had been warning me for months. They told me Julian had been seeing a small-time actress who bore a striking resemblance to me. Alara, you need to be careful, they'd said. We had known each other since we were children, practically growing up in each other's pockets. Despite his flirtatious exterior, I had always believed I knew the depth of his devotion to me. Back then, I had just smiled and dismissed their concerns, saying with complete confidence, I trust him. Now those words felt like a slap across my face. As the tension in the room thickened, Chloe eagerly stepped forward and placed a small rectangular box into my hands. You must be Alara. Happy birthday. This is a gift from Julian and me. The feel of the box in my hands was repulsive. Without a word, I let it drop to the floor with a dull thud. Staring into the familiar darkness of my own world, I let my voice cut through the silence, sharp and clear. Julian, if she is your girlfriend, then what am I? A heavy pause hung in the air before Julian's voice. A sound I knew better than my own reached me. She's not just my girlfriend, Alara, he said, his tone final. I'm going to marry her. The room erupted in a flurry of shocked whispers. Has Julian lost his mind? Choosing some no-name actress over a woman like Alara? It felt as though an invisible hand were slowly closing around my heart, squeezing until I could barely draw a breath. Then what am I? I whispered again, my voice barely audible, threatening to break. In the pin-drop silence that followed, I heard Julian let out a short, hollow laugh, a sound laced with a sliver of guilt. Alara, my wife can't be blind. We're over. A wave of dizziness washed over me and my legs felt weak, as if they could no longer support me. I managed to whisper, you know why I'm like this. You, more than anyone, know exactly why. 3 years ago, a sudden, violent earthquake had struck while we were on vacation. The evacuation was delayed and we were buried together under the rubble of a collapsed building. Waiting for rescue felt like an eternity. As we grew weaker from hunger and thirst, a heavy steel beam directly above Julian began to shift, groaning under the pressure. Without a moment of conscious thought, acting on pure instinct, I crawled over to him and shielded his body with my own. My back took the full, crushing weight of the massive beam. The pain was excruciating, a white-hot agony that made me black out, but I clung to him, my voice a ragged plea. Live, Julian. You have to live. When I finally woke up, I was in a sterile hospital room. A severe head injury had severed my optic nerve. The doctors told my parents that surgery was too risky, that there was no hope of ever restoring my vision. I was blind. Julian had been there. He had kissed my bandaged eyes, his voice trembling with the weight of his promise. Alara, I'll marry no one but you. From now on, I will be your eyes. And now, it was that same man who looked at me with disdain for the very condition I had sustained to save him. I've done everything I can to compensate you with material things. Is emotional blackmail the only tool you have left, Alara? Julian's impatient, growling voice snapped me out of my memories. The people around us were frozen, barely daring to breathe. The only one who seemed unaffected was Chloe, who cheerfully patted his head, as if she were calming a large, angry dog. My boyfriend is just so outstanding, she sighed with theatrical empathy. It's only natural that his ex-girlfriend can't let go and tries to cause a scene. Today is Alara's birthday, darling. Let's just cut her some slack. With just a few well-placed words, she painted me as a hysterical, pathetic ex throwing a tantrum. And Julian, to my astonishment, bought it completely. His expression softened, the hard lines of his face relaxing. Alara, if you were just half as considerate as Chloe, things between us wouldn't have become so ugly. A profound chill spread from my heart through my entire body. I fumbled for the glass on the table in front of me and took a large swallow of the amber liquid inside. The strong liquor burned a path down my throat, causing me to cough uncontrollably. People in our circle always said that Julian was obsessive and had a dangerously sharp edge. But they also said that he loved me to death, that he had never once raised his voice to me in all the years we had known each other. For over 20 years, we had shared every joy, and in my moments of confusion or despair, he had always been my steadfast confidant, the one person I could turn to for comfort. I couldn't understand it. How could the proud, energetic boy from my memories have changed so completely, his heart turning to stone? But since things had come to this, I knew I still had my dignity. With everyone here as a witness, let's make it official, I said. With eyes that stung with unshed tears, I reached for the delicate necklace around my neck. It had been Julian's birthday gift to me the previous year, a custom piece from a famous designer. The inside of the pendant was intricately carved with our initials. I had cherished it as a symbol of our unbreakable love, wearing it constantly, even in the shower. I would often find myself unconsciously tracing the letters with my thumb, a small smile on my face. But now, with a calm I didn't feel, I unclasped it and held it out into the empty space before me. Julian. As our friends looked on, some in shock, others in morbid curiosity, I curled my lips into a gentle smile. Congratulations on your engagement. In advance. Julian, likely not expecting this reaction, cursed under his breath. I heard the thud of his foot kicking a table leg in frustration, and I could feel the icy aura of his anger radiating across the room. The others looked down, suddenly afraid to make a sound. Looks like I've arrived at a bad time, a new voice said, cutting through the tension as someone walked in, bringing the cool evening breeze with them. Why does everyone look so miserable? The faint, familiar scent of sandalwood reached me, and I turned my head toward the newcomer. Nathan, you're here. Nathan Booth was the eldest son of our neighbors. Our family villas were adjacent, and when we were children, I used to love visiting him, dressed up in my favorite princess dress. We had lost touch after he went abroad to study medicine, but I had always thought of him as an older brother. Long time no see, Alara. Are you certain today is your birthday? I hesitated for a moment before nodding. Nathan's gaze swept across the room, and he spoke with a clear note of teasing in his voice. From the atmosphere in this party, I would have thought it was Julian's engagement celebration to some unknown actress. He placed a deliberate emphasis on the words unknown actress. Predictably, Chloe was the first to snap. Who do you think you are? Don't you have any respect for women? Can't you even speak properly? Nathan completely ignored her, his attention fixed on Julian. Is this really how you treat Ilara? He asked, his voice now devoid of humor, sounding for all the world like a brother defending his sister. Julian and I had started dating when we were 18, initially keeping it a secret from our families. Nathan had been the first to figure it out. He had pulled me aside to warn me about the boundaries in relationships and had grilled Julian relentlessly, making him promise to take care of me for a lifetime. Nathan had been a witness to our entire relationship, someone I considered family, and Julian had always shown him a degree of respect. So, even though he was clearly irritated, Julian offered a patient explanation. We broke up. It was amicable. Nathan sneered. Do you actually believe that nonsense yourself? This birthday party is over. Ilara, I'm taking you home. Not wanting to waste any more words, Nathan must have noticed Julian and Chloe's intertwined hands because he added, We don't share the same space as heartless people. His words made a faint smile form on my lips. My cane tapped softly on the floor as I slowly made my way towards him. But as I passed by Chloe, she deliberately stuck her foot out, tripping me. I pitched forward uncontrollably, a small cry escaping my lips. Ilara! Julian shouted, his voice filled with genuine alarm and concern. His warm hand shot out, supporting my waist to keep me from falling. If we've broken up, then you should act like it. Keep your hands to yourself, Nathan scolded, batting Julian's hand away. He caught my back with confidence, helping me regain my balance. If anyone else had provoked Julian so many times in one evening, his infamous temper would have surely led to a punch by now. Yet, for some reason, he held back, only saying through clenched teeth, I don't take back gifts I've given. He was referring to the necklace I had offered him, which now lay unclaimed on a nearby table. Then I'll trash it, I said softly, feeling a sudden wave of weariness. I slowly walked back, located the necklace, and without a moment's hesitation, tossed it into a nearby garbage can. The cool night breeze coming through the open car window helped to clear the tight knot of anxiety in my chest. "Thank you, Nathan," I said. The fact that he was willing to stand up for me against Julian, risking a serious confrontation right after returning to the country, touched me deeply. He had left for his studies the same year as the earthquake, so we hadn't seen each other in 3 years. My life had been so consumed by Julian that the bond of our childhood friendship had faded into the background. "I heard your father has a passion for antiques," I said, wanting to offer more than just words. "My dad recently acquired a set of ancient Chinese teawares at an auction. I'll bring them over for him sometime." I was afraid he would think my verbal thanks weren't enough. Nathan paused for a moment, then laughed. "Hilara, there's no need to be so formal with me." In the sound of his voice, I thought I detected a fleeting, almost imperceptible hint of melancholy. "Here, this is your birthday present," he said, his composure quickly returning as he tossed a rectangular box into my lap. "Thanks," I said, feeling its shape. "Is this a necklace?" I joked lightly. Out with the old, in with the new. Nathan didn't laugh. He was silent for a while, as if pondering something, before asking in the gentle tone of an old friend catching up, "How have you really been these past 3 years?" I felt the air move in front of my face and knew he was waving his hand in front of my eyes. I chuckled. "It's true. I can't see anything." I heard Nathan clench his fist, his voice filled with a raw, gritty anger. If I had only known Julian would turn out to be this kind of person. Nathan, who was usually so gentle and warm, capable of lighthearted teasing, was now showing an obvious anger for the first time. I was a little surprised, but I couldn't help but feel touched that he was so fiercely protective of me. "From tonight on," I said softly but firmly, "he and I are finished." From 18 to 25, we had been together for 7 years. I had loved him with my whole heart, and now that I was letting go, I wouldn't hesitate. "He's not good enough for you," Nathan said, his voice hoarse. He paused, then added, "Alara, you should start looking at other men too." I assumed he was just trying to comfort me and smiled, agreeing with a non-committal hum. "By the way," he said, changing the subject as the car started moving again. "You know there's a chance your eyes can be treated, right? But it comes with a significant risk. If the surgery fails, it could result in cerebral palsy." I turned my head towards the window. No matter how wide I tried to open my eyes, all I could perceive was darkness. Over the past 3 years, my parents had exhausted all their resources, seeking out renowned doctors from all over the world, but every consultation ended in vain. I had long since given up hope. Nathan's tone was calm and professional, drawing on his medical background to explain. "Most of your optic nerves were severed, but recovery isn't impossible. With the current level of medical technology in this country, it's far too risky. However, if we could get a world-renowned overseas eye surgeon to perform the operation, it might work." I gave a bitter smile. "There's an expert in the US, a Dr. Lisa, but hasn't she retired from practice to teach? People say even an infinite amount of money can't get her to operate." "Not necessarily," Nathan said, a cunning smile in his voice. If my eyes were working, I was sure I would have seen them sparkling, a playful smile on his lips in the dim light of the car. As luck would have it, I specialized in optometry abroad, and Dr. Lisa happens to be my mentor. Lying in the hospital bed, undergoing a battery of eye and brain examinations, I felt like I was in a daze. Dr. Lisa was scheduled to arrive in the country in 2 weeks, and my parents had already arranged for a VIP room for me. Nathan worked at the same hospital and would often stop by to see me during his breaks. He would recount funny stories from our childhood, frequently making me laugh out loud. The awkward distance created by years of separation slowly began to dissolve, and at times it almost felt like we were children again. The only difference was that Julian wasn't there. On the second day of my hospital stay, Nathan arrived with a large, furry creature in tow. "A smiling angel," he announced, referring to the Samoyed. "I hope he brings you some joy." I was a little excited. After losing my sight, I had considered getting a guide dog, but Julian was severely allergic to dog hair, so I had to abandon the idea. Since I was a child, no matter how adorable any cat or dog I encountered was, I never dared to stay near them for long, terrified of getting fur on my clothes and triggering his coughing fits. Now it's perfect, I murmured, petting the Samoyed's soft head repeatedly. He's so well behaved. What should we name him? How about Comet? Nathan's voice was light, holding a smile. All right then, Comet it is. Hello, smiling angel Comet. I'm Alara. Comet brought a much-needed ray of light into my dark world. He had undergone some basic training and could function as a semi-guide dog. He loved to lead me down to the grassy lawn outside the hospital to roll around, and he especially loved to rub his head against my palm. That day, as we were basking in the sun on the grass as usual, an unwelcome guest appeared. It was Chloe. She strutted over, the sound of her high heels clicking on the pavement, and looked down at me, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Alara, I'm not surprised you're a princess from a wealthy family. You can even summon a world-class eye surgery expert with a snap of your fingers. By the way, why did you leave so abruptly the other day? You didn't even take your gift, and we put a lot of thought into it. I coldly interrupted her. Miss Chloe, you still derive such pleasure from cheap theatrics. Chloe's face must have stiffened because her voice was sharp when she responded sarcastically. Do you really think that fixing your eyes will make Julian come back to you? Keep dreaming. He grew tired of you a long time ago. So that's what this was about. I found it almost amusing. Can't you live without a man? I asked, then answered my own question. I heard Julian spent a small fortune on you. You used to be nothing more than a background actress, and now you've cozied up to a rich boy and made it to the second tier, haven't you? People online are calling you the queen of terrible dramas. Miss Chloe, why don't you spend some of this energy working on your acting skills? Chloe probably assumed I was the elegant, gentle type and didn't expect me to retaliate with such sharp words. She seemed stunned at first, then flew into a rage. Elara, you're just a blind girl. What gives you the right to lecture me? And by the way, do you know what Julian says about you? He says he's sick of you. In bed, you're like a dead fish, absolutely no reaction. He said he loves me and that he will definitely marry me. Her filthy, revolting words stabbed deep into my chest. Comet, sensing the commotion, wagged his tail and ran over, barking furiously at Chloe. What a crazy dog, she shrieked. Perhaps seeing that Comet was just a Samoyed and not a more intimidating breed, she kicked him. The thudding sound and his yelp of pain startled me. Get lost, she cursed, kicking him again. Despite the pain, Comet stood his ground, positioning himself in front of me. My temples began to pound. I grabbed my cane and swung it blindly in her direction. The first hit landed squarely on her calf. Alara, what are you doing? You crazy woman! Chloe cried out in pain, buckling and kneeling half on the ground. When you can't see, your other senses become exceptionally sharp. I swung again, hitting her back. She screamed. How dare you? Julian won't spare you. Why wouldn't I dare? My voice was icy, laced with frost. You said it yourself. I am a princess from a wealthy family. Do you really think I would be afraid of an ill-mannered, third-rate actress? I pointed the thick end of my cane in her direction, emphasizing every word. Chloe, don't test my patience, or you'll get a beating every single time you decide to mess with me. The next day, I had Nathan drive me back to my house to pick up some fresh clothes, with Comet in tow. As he pulled up to the door, I asked, Don't you want to come in, Nathan? My parents would love to see you. Nathan lowered the car window, a smile in his voice. I have a surgery this afternoon. I'll come and visit your uncle and aunt another time. Nathan might seem calm on the surface, but he was actually the most rebellious one in his family. Since childhood, he had shown no interest in the family business, possessing a deep and unwavering passion for medicine. 3 years ago, a massive fight with his parents had finally won him the chance to study abroad. I was genuinely happy that he was able to pursue his dream. All right then, drive safely, I said, waving in his direction. As the roar of his car faded into the distance, I held Comet's leash in one hand and my cane in the other, feeling surprisingly content as I walked towards my front door. Before I could even step inside, someone grabbed my wrist in a hard grip. They remained silent as they pulled me forcefully to the side, completely ignoring the way I stumbled due to my blindness. Julian. As he drew closer, the familiar scent of his cologne was unmistakable. What are you trying to do? He was clearly waiting to ambush me, emanating a low, intense pressure. His voice was deep and low. This isn't the right place to talk. Let's go to my place. How could someone so casually say, let's go to my place, Mesai, to an ex-girlfriend? A small spark of anger flared in my chest and I struggled to shake his hand off. If you have something to say it right here. And let me remind you, we've broken up, so it's better if we don't get entangled. Julian stared, dumbfounded, at the hand I had so mercilessly shaken off. After a long moment, he finally spoke, his tone dripping with accusation. Alara, are you really that impatient? You're hitting someone over a dog. I understood then. Chloe had been whispering her version of events to him. Julian added, she just teased you a little bit. If you had just endured it, it would have passed. Was it really that serious? I thought back to the woman who had called me a blind girl and had her head smashed with a bottle by this very same man. When I had heard about it, I had nagged him to control his temper, to not resort to violence over such small matters. Back then, Julian had buried his head in my neck, mumbling, it's not a small matter, Alara. I will never let you suffer even the slightest grievance. The irony was crushing. For a fleeting moment, I wanted to grab Julian by the collar and scream at him, asking if a dog had eaten all of his past promises. But then I remembered, if a heart changes, it changes. There was no point in questioning or explaining. So I took a few steps back to create some distance between us and coldly said 3 words. I can't endure it. My voice was flat. And believe it or not, if you act crazy again, my cane might just land on you. Julian dragged me to a secluded corner, ignoring my struggles. Just when I thought he was about to defend his new girlfriend, he suddenly leaned down and hugged me tightly. Alara, please, just wait a little bit longer. Just wait for me, he whispered, his voice desperate. Like countless times before, his head rested on my shoulder, his warm breath on my skin. I couldn't help but let out a dry, humorless laugh. Seeing him like this, anyone who didn't know our situation might think he was schizophrenic. Before I could push him away, a sudden force pulled him off me, and the sound of a fist connecting heavily with a face echoed in the quiet space. Julian, what the hell are you trying to do? It was Nathan. He had come back. The two of them quickly descended into a fight. As I listened carefully, I realized it was a completely one-sided beating, with Nathan relentlessly thrashing Julian. For some inexplicable reason, Julian wasn't fighting back at all, just silently taking the hits. Comet, startled by the violence, was barking wildly by my side, almost as if he were cheering for Nathan. Nathan, I called out, seeing no end to the beating in sight. I still need to get my clothes. Please take me back. The thick, malevolent anger surrounding Nathan seemed to dissipate the moment I spoke. He spat out a curse. It was the first time I had ever heard the usually refined and gentlemanly Nathan swear. It showed just how much he despised Julian for his betrayal. I giggled softly, trying to comfort him. Let's not stoop to the level of scumbags. Nathan's anger mostly faded at my attempt at a smile. Alara, let's go. Leaving Julian on the ground behind us, the two of us and the dog walked away. Throughout the entire process, Julian didn't say another word, but I could feel his gaze, almost a tangible thing, glued to my back. We were in a secluded corner of the property, still a little way from the villa. It had rained the night before, making the path slippery. Noticing my difficulty in walking, Nathan extended his hand. Alara, do you want me to hold your hand? As soon as the words left his mouth, he seemed to reconsider. How about this? You hand me the cane, and I'll guide you. I chuckled silently to myself. That was Nathan for you. So unlike the wild and unruly Julian. He was always respectful, never doing anything that might cause embarrassment or cross a line. If someone were to pass by at that moment, they would have seen a strange yet beautiful scene. A woman holding the handle of a cane, the other end held firmly in the hand of a tall, elegant man, who was also holding the leash of a pure white Samoyed. Suddenly, a thought occurred to me. Nathan, don't you have a surgery to perform? As soon as I left the neighborhood, I saw Julian's car parked by the side of the road, so I rushed back. Luckily, he didn't get a chance to do anything to you, Nathan explained. He must have winked at me as he added teasingly, You're far more important than any surgery. I sincerely thanked him. Nathan, you've really helped me so much. How about I invite myself over for dinner at your place tonight? Do you think your folks will mind? Of course not, he replied warmly. They'd be thrilled. A few days later, Julian made a high-profile announcement on social media, officially declaring his engagement to Chloe. The news of a wealthy playboy falling for a bright and passionate young actress, a story spun as true love, dominated the headlines. Some sensationalist reporters dredged up my memory, the supposedly forgotten first love, comparing my appearance with Chloe's and writing speculative pieces about a doppelganger romance. Julian himself personally refuted the rumors, stating that it was merely a coincidence that we looked alike. He insisted that he liked Chloe for who she was, not because of her face. When Nathan relayed all of this to me, the nerve repair surgery had been a success. My eyes were once again wrapped in thick gauze, but this time, my heart was filled with a joyful anticipation for the return of light. My mother was so emotional that she sat by my bedside crying while peeling apples for me. I always thought Julian was a devoted one, she sniffled. But he found another woman before you two were even married. It seems Nathan is still the best. You two know each other so well. In my opinion, you should just be together. I couldn't help but laugh through my own tears. Mom, please stop matchmaking. I see Nathan as a brother. Besides, he already has someone he likes. Unable to see their reactions, I just kept talking. The other day, I overheard a young nurse asking for his Instagram, and he said it himself. Isn't that right, Nathan? Nathan was startled for a moment, then a warm smile entered his voice. He must have been squinting his eyes. Auntie, Alara's right. I do like someone. So I don't add other girls on social media. Naturally, my mind drifted to the women who had always surrounded Julian. Even though I had loved him deeply, I would occasionally get upset. You always say it's just an act, but what if one day it becomes real? Who am I going to cry to then? Julian would always respond by kissing me until I was breathless and then whispering in my ear, Alara, you are the only one in my heart. But the very next day, he would be back to his smooth, charming act with those other women. Snapping back to the present, I asked Nathan, So, when are you going to introduce us to this famous girlfriend of yours? He seemed to be lost in sweet memories for a moment before I heard his reply. I'm still pursuing her. I wrote her a lot of love letters when I was abroad. Nathan raised his eyebrows, his voice serious. I haven't won her over yet, but I've already proposed to her. At that moment, both my mom and I were completely stunned. What do you mean? You skipped the dating part and went straight to proposing? My mom exclaimed. Nathan. She slapped her thigh for emphasis. You can't be so hasty. You need to take things slow to win a girl's heart. Nathan didn't seem to mind her advice. I've waited long enough. I want to be with her as soon as possible. Thinking about it, I had waited long enough for Julian too. 7 years to be exact. I had subtly asked him many times when he planned to propose, but he always used the excuse of needing to establish his career first. You know, my stepmother always sees me as a thorn in her side, he would say. I need to regain everything that is rightfully mine before I can have the confidence to propose to your parents. Wait a little longer, Alara. Once I sort everything out, I'll give you the most luxurious and grand wedding imaginable. Wait a little longer was the phrase I heard most often from Julian. So, what happened? Did the girl agree? My mom had caught on to the key detail. Nathan lowered his eyes in thought for a moment. She hasn't given me a reply yet. Then it's probably not going to happen, my mom sighed, but I thought there was still a chance. From what I could tell, Nathan was incredibly serious about this relationship. He sounded like a man who genuinely wanted to get married. Nathan, I said sincerely, I hope you win her heart soon. Nathan let out a soft laugh, his tone unusually gentle. Then I'll take Alara's kind words as a blessing. Days flew by. My mom kept me company, Comet kept me entertained, and Nathan would visit after work to share funny stories from the hospital. As for Julian, I heard about him missing his own engagement party from two young nurses who were chatting outside my room. Was all that sweetness before just a marketing strategy? I always wondered why a rich guy would fall for a third rate actress. There's insider information saying Julian did it on purpose to make a statement to his stepmother. The schemes of the rich run deep. Just then, Justin walked in carrying some washed fruit. The nurses glanced shyly at him, cut their discussion short, and went back to work. So there's more to this story? He asked tentatively. Alara, will you forgive him? I shook my head, a faint smile on my lips. I believe that having reasons doesn't justify hurting someone. Justin seemed to let out a breath of relief, and then he got worked up, as he often did on my behalf. Exactly. He has a mouth, doesn't he? Couldn't he explain it? Even if everything with Chloe was a fake, the hurt it caused you was very real. You can't forgive him. Even if Julian gets on his knees and begs, you need to reject him forcefully. I smiled. Don't worry, Nathan. My eyesight was recovering remarkably well. When the day came for Nathan to remove my bandages, my dad and mom both took time off from work to be at the hospital. The long mist light pierced my eyes, and I squinted at first, but then, gradually, the world came into focus. In the stark white hospital room, my parents were looking at me with expectant, hopeful faces, and a snow-white Samoyed was sitting on the floor, panting happily. And then, there was Nathan, standing there in his white coat. He had sharp features, prominent eyebrows and eyes, and a pair of silver-framed glasses perched on his nose. His eyes were full of a warm, gentle smile as he looked at me. I can finally see, I whispered. The moment the words left my lips, my mom's own lips quivered, and tears began to stream down her face. That's wonderful, Alara, just wonderful. Even my dad, who was usually so composed, was pacing excitedly around the room. My own eyes brimmed with tears. 3 years after that devastating earthquake, I could finally see the vibrant colors of the world again. Nathan's lips curled into a smile as he looked at me gently. We'll need to observe you for a few more days, but if everything goes well, you can be discharged soon. My mom stepped forward and took his hand. Nathan, you found Dr. Lisa to cure our only daughter. Whatever you want, just say the word. From now on, if you ever need any help, your uncle and I will do everything in our power to assist you. My dad nodded in agreement. Yes, our family owes you a great debt. Nathan waved it off. It wasn't just you who wanted Alara to be cured. I wanted it too. My mom nodded approvingly. You've always treated Alara like your own sister. You've been so good to her. Why don't we just adopt you, Nathan, and make you our son? What do you think? I was so excited about regaining my sight that I spent far too much time on my phone. Nathan advised me to take at least a half-hour nap each afternoon to let my eyes rest. I had just closed my eyes to nap when I heard Nathan quietly walk into the room. He gently tucked the blanket around me and then simply stood by my bed, looking down at me. Just as I was wondering if he knew I was only pretending to be asleep, I was enveloped in a fresh, woody scent. A warm touch landed on my forehead and then quickly retreated. I clenched my fingers into fists to stop myself from gasping aloud. Nathan had kissed me. A crazy thought popped into my mind, but I quickly pushed it away. Nathan has always been the most well-mannered person I know. He always understands the boundaries. What did he mean by suddenly kissing me? Even though it was just on the forehead, we weren't siblings. It would be easy to get the wrong idea. Plus, he had admitted himself that he liked someone else. He had even proposed to her. My mind was a tangled mess of confusion. Just as I was hesitating, unsure if I should wake up, the door to the hospital room was suddenly thrown open with a violent bang. Someone stormed in and threw a punch directly at Nathan's face. Nathan, I should have known your intentions toward Alara weren't pure. Julian, isn't he supposed to be busy fighting for the family inheritance? What is he doing here? It would be incredibly rude to continue pretending to sleep now, so I calmly sat up in bed and called out to stop the two of them from fighting. Stop it! Julian raised his head in astonishment. Alara, you can see? He was wearing a black hoodie and dark blue jeans. His deep-set, sharp features were as striking as ever. At 26, he still possessed a youthful air. After 3 years, I could finally see his face again. The moment our eyes met, Julian seemed to forget all about punishing Nathan. He reached out, his fingers trembling as if trying to grab me. I instinctively dodged back, and his hand came up empty, his knuckles hanging awkwardly in the air. When he looked up again, his voice was trembling, on the verge of tears. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Alara. I'm late." "You certainly should apologize," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "But what's the point of saying these things now?" Nathan laughed sardonically. "Julian, how do you have the nerve to face her?" One side of his face was already swelling from the punch. Julian turned to glare at Nathan with pure hatred. "Pretending to be her brother while making moves on her behind her back. Aren't you disgusting?" I coldly retorted, "That's between us. It's none of your business." Then I looked at Nathan, my voice softening. "Go take care of your wound first. I'll talk to him alone." Nathan took a few steps towards the door, then turned back to look at me. His beautiful peach blossom eyes were filled with regret and caution. "Sorry. I thought you were asleep. I just couldn't control myself." I gave him a comforting smile. "I have a lot of questions for you. We can talk after I get discharged." Now it was just Julian and me in the room. I picked up a cup and took a slow sip of water. "Whatever you have to say it all today." Julian stood in front of me, looking awkward and unsure of himself. "Alara, you saw the news, right? I didn't get engaged to Chloe. It was all a setup." "Do you really think," I interrupted him calmly, "that with a simple excuse of acting, all the hurtful things you said at my birthday party can just be wiped away? I didn't want to drag you into this mess. You can yell at me, hit me if you want, but please, Alara, don't look at me like that." Julian's sharp eyes turned red, seemingly provoked by my calm demeanor. "Why aren't you angry? Didn't you always love me?" "Love you for what? For how you got tired of me? Or for how I'm like a dead dog in bed?" "None of that was true. My stepmother specifically found someone who looks just like you to try and seduce me. Everything I said was to throw them off the scent. Ilara, believe me." A cold, detached look settled on my face as I exhaled slowly. "Whatever the reason was, I have no feelings for you anymore. None at all." "You're lying. I know you're angry, but you can't fool me." At my words, the wealthy young master's eyes grew sore, and suddenly, tears began to fall. Red-eyed, he took something out of his pocket and held it out in front of me. It was the necklace, the one engraved with our names that I had thrown away. He had actually retrieved it from the trash. "Alara, we've known each other for over 20 years, and we were together for 7. You can't do this to me." Finally, my calm expression broke, a mocking smile forming on my lips. 7 years couldn't withstand you saying, "A blind woman can't be Julian's wife," at my own birthday party. That night, I had tossed the necklace away with a smooth, decisive motion, spouted harsh words without batting an eye, and walked away without a single glance back. Only I knew how much it had hurt. My nails had dug so deeply into my palms that they nearly drew blood, my hand trembling uncontrollably under the table from the sheer pain and anger as I wished them a happy engagement. In my memories, the lively young man stood tall and proud. I had stood by the basketball court in a white dress, handing him water. I had ridden on his back through countless summers. I thought Julian would one day give me a grand wedding. Instead, what I got was him holding another girl's hand and saying to me, "Alara, we're done." The boy who had filled my entire youth had, in the end, given me nothing but betrayal. "Julian," I said, knowing it might be the last time I called him that. "From the moment you said it was over, there has been no possibility between us." I watched as the light in Julian's eyes slowly faded, bit by bit. He opened his mouth, but seemed overwhelmed by sorrow, only managing to squeeze out a few words after a long while. "Is it because of Nathan?" "It has nothing to do with anyone else." Suddenly, a small, fluffy ball of white fur ran into the room. Comet, not understanding the complexities of human language, happily bounded towards me. Julian seemed to see a lifeline, and he bent down to pet Comet's head. "Ilara, see, I can pet a dog now." After we get married, you can have as many cats and dogs as you want without ever having to worry about me." Before he could finish his sentence, Julian let out a loud sneeze and started coughing violently. He bent over, covering his mouth, looking as if he might cough himself to death. I ignored him completely, squatting down to pick Comet up in my arms. "He doesn't like you," I said flatly. "That's it, now go." That day, near my home, when Julian had pulled me into a corner and begged me to wait a little longer, I had already guessed much of the truth. But what did dealing with his stepmother have to do with me? Julian kept saying he loved me, but his actions always resulted in my pain. What's that saying? A love that isn't felt means nothing. I deeply agree. The day after I was discharged from the hospital, my parents took me to visit Nathan's family. The three of us brought a car full of gifts. My dad even brought the Qing Dynasty tea set he had recently won at a charity auction as a thank you gift for Nathan. In the living room, the adults were chatting amicably. Nathan tugged at my sleeve. "Hey, my house just got renovated. We got a lot of new furniture. Want me to show you around?" "Sure," I said, eager for an opportunity to discuss the things between us. But before Nathan could show me more than a few rooms, his mom called him to the kitchen to help cut some fruit. Pointing to the study down the hall, he said, "Wait for me in there. I'll be right back." I stepped into the study, which had a classic vintage feel. His father's antique collections were displayed everywhere. On the large mahogany desk was a thick stack of envelopes, their corners slightly yellowed with age. I leaned in for a closer look and was shocked to realize that every single letter was addressed to me. Curiosity got the better of me, and I carefully took one out to read. As I got through the first few lines, a wave of powerful emotions washed over me. I couldn't believe it. I pulled out every single letter and skimmed through them. Then, I made a startling realization. Each letter was written for me, filled with affectionate, heartfelt words. They were all signed by Nathan and dated from his 3 years abroad. Suddenly, his words from the other day came back to me. I wrote her many love letters, so these were them. The love letters he wrote, but never sent. A gust of wind came through the open window, scattering the letters across the floor. One of them landed at someone's feet. Looking up past the fluttering papers, I locked eyes with Nathan. His stunning, almond-shaped eyes were filled with a love so profound it took my breath away. "Alara, I left them in the study on purpose. I've liked you, or maybe it's better to say I had a crush on you, way before Julian ever did." I stammered, "But you said you liked someone." He smiled softly, a smile that seemed to overflow with affection. "It's always been you. Only you." I found it hard to believe. "When I was dating Julian, you never showed any jealousy." He sighed lightly. "I was scared you'd push me away if you knew. But now, I don't want to be just your brother anymore." Something clicked in my head. With a hoarse voice, I asked, "Did you go abroad to study medicine because of me?" "I majored in optometry. I specifically chose Dr. Lisa as my mentor. From the very beginning, it was all to help you." Nathan's eyes showed a flash of pain as he recalled the past. "Alara, my biggest regret is not finding you sooner during that earthquake, and not being there to protect you." "Nathan." My eyes and nose stung with tears. How could I have been so dense? This gentle, reserved man had done so much for me, even when I was with someone else, without ever expecting a response. I thought I only had Julian in my life, but Nathan had been silently loving me all these years too. "You don't need to feel any pressure," Nathan said again. "My dad initially opposed my decision to study medicine, but it was you who gave me the courage to defy him and chase my dreams." I looked away, fearing that meeting his intense gaze would make me cry. After saying so much, Nathan gave me a playful wink. "Miss Alara, can you give me a chance to pursue you?" Taking a deep breath, trying to steady myself, I replied, my voice tinged with tears. "Nathan, thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for loving me all this time. I'm sorry, but because of my last relationship, I can't give you a clear answer right now. But I'm really, really grateful that you're in my life, whether it's as a brother or a lover." Finishing in one breath, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. "It's all right, Alara. As if he had anticipated this response, Nathan smiled warmly, as he always did. Can I hug you? Nathan looked at me with a mixture of anticipation and tension. Afraid of my refusal, his fair, delicate hands raised slightly and then lowered again. If it feels like too much, just forget it. Suddenly, a quote from Salinger's stories came to mind. Some people think love is sex, marriage, kisses at 6 a.m., or lots of kids. But do you know what I think? I think love is wanting to touch, yet hesitating to. Nathan's love for me was just like those hands that wanted to touch but pulled back. A single tear slid down my cheek. I didn't hesitate. I stepped forward and gently hugged him. After getting home, I rummaged through my drawers and found the rectangular box Nathan had given me on my birthday. There were so many unopened gifts from that night. Holding my breath, I slowly opened the blue velvet box. Inside was, indeed, a necklace. Its delicate silver chain sparkled gently in the light. But it wasn't just a necklace. At the end of the chain where a pendant should be was a ring. He had proposed to me, in his own quiet way. 8 years with Julian, and not a single proposal. With Nathan, not even in a relationship, he had already planned our future. For the next few days, I was constantly distracted, often staring off into space. My dad thought I was still stuck on Julian and suggested I go traveling to clear my mind. My mom just whispered something mysterious to him, saying, "Let the young ones handle their own matters." At dinner the next day, my mom sighed deeply, her face a mask of concern. "Did you know? Nathan got stabbed by the family member of a mentally unstable patient." I was startled, my heart dropping. "Seriously, when? Why didn't you tell me earlier?" In that moment, nothing else mattered. I dropped my chopsticks and rushed to the hospital. I was on edge the entire way, urging the driver to go faster. I haven't even agreed to be with you yet, I thought aimlessly. "Nathan, please be okay." But when I arrived at Nathan's office, it was empty. "Looking for Dr. Booth?" a curious nurse asked, eyeing me. I nodded frantically. "He's in the VIP room, talking to a new patient. Just take the elevator to the top floor." I started to ask if Nathan was hurt, but just then my phone pinged with a message from my mom. "Just kidding, he's fine. Take your time and talk." The nurse added, "The VIP room is currently occupied by that famous heir, Julian Thorne. He seems to be going through something lately. He drank himself into a stupor and ended up vomiting blood. The next day, he went crazy, speeding on the highway and ended up in a major car crash. The car was totaled. Dramatically, his life was saved, but Mr. Thorne damaged his brain's visual center, causing temporary blindness. To put it plainly, he's blind now." And then I could hear Nathan's clear voice coming from the slightly open door. I perked up my ears to listen. He seemed to be gloating. "Karma's a funny thing, isn't it, Julian? When you look down on Alara for being blind, did you ever think you'd end up this way one day?" Leo had broken a leg in the crash. He couldn't even get up to hit him, so he just gritted his teeth and cursed. Taking advantage of someone when they're down? You're really shameless. Nathan wasn't feeling magnanimous at all and yelled back, "You selfish jerk, hurting the ones closest to you for your own gain." Alara might appear gentle, but she's actually incredibly resolute. She couldn't tolerate any deceit. You totally deserve this. Leo was so angry he couldn't catch his breath and started coughing so hard it sounded painful. Stop acting like some kind of hero. All you want is to steal her from me. Nathan, how are you any better? There was a possessive desperation in Leo's voice. You're wrong, Nathan said, looking down at him. His expression softened when he spoke about me. She doesn't have to be with me. I just want her to be happy. But you didn't manage to do that, did you? Leo went silent, stunned and at a loss for words. When Nathan turned to leave, he noticed me peeking through the crack in the door. Joy spread across his face as he walked towards me. Alara? Then his eyes lowered and the joy was replaced by sadness. Did you come to see Julian? I quickly denied it. I didn't even know he had a car accident. Alara, you're here, right? Leo heard my voice. His head and eyes were wrapped in thick bandages. He leaned out from the bed, his voice almost pleading. Come in and see me. Does seeing me like this make you feel any better? The once arrogant Julian Thorne was now humbled, but I didn't respond. After Nathan stepped out into the hallway, I gently closed the door. Don't pity him, Nathan said with an air of seriousness, probably worried I'd feel sympathy for Julian. He's just trying to manipulate you. I complimented him without hesitation. What you said in there earlier, it really hit home for me. Nathan's eyes lit up, resembling our happy Samoyed comet. Then, could Miss Alara consider giving me a chance to pursue you? No, I answered firmly. Nathan's smile froze on his face. I stood on my tiptoes and whispered in his ear, You don't need to pursue me. A warm, silent love had blossomed between us. He had become an inseparable part of my life. Let's be together, Nathan. Let's just be together.